Hi, it's Jessie. I'm back again. And this morning I woke up to some strange words from God, okay? I don't yet understand what they mean, but I'll share them anyways. It's gonna sound weird, okay? I heard Kafka. I heard it's Kafka time. Now, I'm familiar with Kafka, okay? Like 20 years ago, when I was doing my undergraduate studies, I read a book by Kafka, and it was about a man who transformed into a roach or something to that effect. I don't remember the details of it. I remember the symbol that was in it. They had a strange cross that was like a line with like a circle over the top and then another line through it. Other than that, I don't remember much about it. So, I got up and I hit my search engine. I looked on Wikipedia and read his biography and found that he died at age 40. That that was kind of significant to me because I'm age 40, and I know that sounds crazy, but God had me looking at something else of a Queen Puabi. You know, she was with the people of where Abraham came from, and she was before Abraham's time, and she also died at age 40. And there's something connected to being the age 40 there. I'm not quite sure what it is, but I went to the library this morning and I picked up some Kafka books. The first one that I'm reading is called The Trial. And let's see, give you a good picture of it. I know it's like backwards in the thing, but it's interesting because let me just read you part of the introduction, okay? It says the foresight of the trial into the inferno of modern bureaucracy has imputed guilt into torture and the anonymities of death, as these characterize the 20th century totalitarian regimes, has been made a cliche. I've only read, the introduction and several more pages. But so far, my thoughts are like, did God bring me this book to show me what I'm going through and to tell you how it connects? I would have to point out things from the book. But I want to pick up this other thing from the introduction. It says, in the bottom line, I haven't gotten to the end of this book, okay? First several pages, that is all, okay? The spiritual possibility exists that Franz Kafka experiences prophetic powers as some visitation of guilt, that foresight stripped him naked. K becomes the appalled yet almost impatient accessory to the crime carried out on him. There is in every suicide simultaneously apologia and acquiescence, as the chaplain pronounces in the most desolate of mockeries. The court wants nothing from you. It receives nothing. It receives you when you come and it dismisses you when you go. The formula comes deliberately close to being a definition of human life, of freedom to be culpable, which is that of fallen man. Who but Kafka could have put it in so few words, or known himself condemned by being inspired enough to do so? Okay, so they call this man prophetic because he writes about these things. And he writes about things before they happen. Like, if you read this book, just the first few pages show you how, like, an authority can come in and arrest you, without cause, without justification. And they have like this system for deferring responsibility. And it's like none of it makes any sense, but you're subject to it. And in the first few pages of this book, we find the opening lines are where this man wakes up and he's expecting his breakfast to be brought to him. His name is Joseph K. And without the breakfast being brought into him, he finds these two wardens, like what we would call police officers today, or even, corrections officers. But here they're called wardens, and they greet him, and they tell him that he's under arrest, and he's like, what am I under arrest for, and as soon as he says this, it occurs to him in his mind that by responding to these men, he gave them the right to superintend their actions, by opening the door to say, what am I under arrest for? He's opened the door to allow them to arrest him. This is like one of his first thoughts, right? By page 3, we find that you can't go out. The wardens are telling him that you can't go out. You are arrested, and we are not authorized to tell you what you're arrested for. The wardens only say that they've said too much already. They tell him, we can't tell you why you're under arrest, just we've said too much already, and you'll learn everything in due time. By page 4, Kay is like, I live in a country with a legal constitution, and it is enacted fully. It's in full enforcement, and we have peace in our land. So he's questioning, how can this happen, And he wants to see their supervisor, and they tell him that, you can't see the supervisor. We only do what he tells us to, Kay asked them for an arrest warrant, and they won't give it to him. When the woman brings his breakfast, finally, she's not allowed to enter into the room, and the people who are holding him, they won't answer any of the questions as to why. They just say it's not allowed, point blank, and they're telling him that one thing that they say is that they identify themselves as subordinates, that they're just following orders, and that the authority over them is well informed. And their officials never go hunting for a crime, but the law decrees. But as the law decrees, are drawn to the guilty. Like, they only go after the guilty, so they're justified in doing what they do because they only go after the guilty anyway. So, we're just going to do this thing the way it is, right? And he says, what law says this, And then they tell him that you can't claim innocence if you don't know the law. And he's like, show me your superior so that I can reason with them, because I could talk to you all for hours and I wouldn't be able to get through to you. But if I could talk to your superior, I might be able to, handle this thing. We might be able to settle this thing in a few minutes. He must be an intelligent person, he says. But they just won't let him, they won't speak to him. They won't do anything for him. I wanted to read this passage wholly, okay? He says, must I, he thought, let myself be confused still worse by the gabble of wretched hirelings? They admit themselves that's all they are. They're talking of things in any case which they don't understand. Plain stupidity is the only thing that can give them such assurance. A few words with a man on my own level of intelligence would make everything far clearer than hours of talk with these two. That's what I just said. He walked up and down a few times in the free part of his room. At the other side of the street he could still see the old woman who had now dragged to the window an even older man whom she was holding around the waist. And he goes, "Take me to your superior officer." "When he orders me, and not before," retorted the warder, called William. "And now I advise you," he went on, "to go to your room, stay quietly there, and wait for what may be decided about you. Our advice to you is to not let yourself be distracted by vain thoughts, but to collect yourself, for great demands will be made upon you. You haven't treated us as our kind advances towards you deserve. You have forgotten that we, no matter who we may be, are at least free men compared to you. That is no small advantage. All the same, we are prepared, if you have any money, to bring you a little breakfast from the coffee house across the street." Okay, so I read that because it like totally displays the mind game that they play on you. Okay, it's completely ridiculous. Where I don't know how the book ends, but where he says that we have personal responsibility in suicide. Let me get back to this page and read this line over again. There is in every suicide simultaneously apologia and acquiescence, that we are in part responsible for the point where we take our own lives, right? And this guy, I don't know, like, if he dies in the end of the book, but I can totally relate to what he's going through. Like, people just say things and then they act like we're being kind to you, though we have arrested you. And in one place, they even told him, "You're going to have to give up your fancy pajamas, so you're going to have to hand those over, and you'll have to wear more simple clothes." They're dictating areas of his life where they have no business. He lives in a free country. He is a free man. He wasn't born a slave. And yet here they come to put the chains on him, the binds on him. And I can fully relate to this, because I don't know, like, what has happened over the past 10 years. I just know that whatever happened, there's no justification for it. And the first line in this says, "Someone must have been telling lies about Joseph K., for without having done anything wrong, he was arrested one fine morning." That's the opening line to the book. And I kind of feel the same way. And like Job, where Job in the Bible, he talks about people are trying to punish me for the sins of my youth. And I thought that for a long time, partially because I'm, into my Bible, and I'm a rational person, and so I always want to rationalize things, We always want to rationalize things, but for some things there can be no rationale. Like, you don't treat people like this. You don't do these things to people. Like, what kind of person does this stuff to people? Who would just come in without explaining themselves in a free country, and a country with a constitution, with a law, where its citizens have rights? Who would just come in and strip all those rights away, And they say that his work was prophetic of, what happened with the Nazis in Germany, because Kafka's 3 sisters died in the concentration camps, right? At least that's what the book says. So, if this was played out then, you have to, like, look and wonder, we are at least 70 years from the time of where this genocide took place with the concentration camps and all this appalling stuff. You have to look at it and wonder, like, why are people still using these means, when I was doing my undergrad studies, you know, they were talking about Germany being a world power and how they encouraged us to learn German, you know? And I was like, what are you teaching us? That's not true. We don't hear anything about Germany. But then as I age, as I get older, I come to understand that, the most powerful people hold on to their power by remaining anonymous, by remaining quiet, you know. They get other people to do their dirty work, and it's really a quite dangerous thing. And I'm not saying that Germany is a all-powerful dangerous country right now. I have no idea who operates behind the scenes, I can see in the dark, but not that far. um, but I'm saying, like, these people, they only have power because they have people who will do their dirty work for them, you know. I can totally relate to the pain that this causes, as people feel that they're justified based on the demands placed upon them by an authority, and they're not just demanded to do it, they're compensated for doing it, and so they feel justified in doing it. But if my memory serves me correctly, you know um there were lots of Nazis who claimed absolution because they were ordered to do it. They tried to say they were just following orders. They were just doing what they were told. And I know that in the courts of law, when they went through these trials, I know that the courts of law found that it was not a valid excuse, because you cannot defer your responsibility to be a good person onto the person ordering you to be a bad person. You know, you can say no. You know, these people, they're not powerful in and of themselves. The only thing that makes them power is their ability to play mind games, their ability to twist things, their ability to tie your hands, their ability to turn you against someone else, their ability. I cannot even tell you how many times where he talks about the suicide thing again. I cannot even tell you how many times the trolls in my internet came up and told me, why don't I just kill myself? Okay? And it's like, they can't kill you, they can't control you, so they're going to drive you to a point in which you kill yourself, you know? And knowing this, knowing that this is their aim, that this is the way that they play their game, it is of the utmost importance that we remain strong, that we keep standing no matter what they do to us, because though they're setting everything up, and the weight of it can feel quite crushing, the weight of it can, it's the weight of it will have you falling on your knees and crying out to God, because you don't even want to live in the world after you've seen the weight of these people, after you've gotten to look up close and personal at what their games are. Donald Trump in the news the past few days has been talking about what these people are doing are unconstitutional, right? And you know what? I can relate to President Trump, and because I can relate to what he's saying, I can have compassion for him. I don't have to judge him as guilty or innocent in anything that he did, right? But I can have compassion on him because I know, like, where they're talking about how he is trying to use foreign governments to, like, investigate, his political rivals and whatnot. I don't necessarily see that as a bad thing, because, like, something has been tanking our country for, like, years and years and years, just it keeps getting worse and worse and worse, and the Bible would say that the hearts of the people have grown cold. And it's grown so cold that, we don't even want to care for one another anymore. You know, it's like, if it used to be that if someone needed help, you would help them, and now it's like, if someone needs help, then you kick them while they're down. You exploit them to see what you can get out of them. You extort them. And it's just, it's a horrible thing. And the people who do it, they're like, they don't look like monsters. They look like bright shining faces. They look like they're righteous people. They look like they care for one another. But in all honesty, they're what is driving, like, the turmoil that's in the world, you know, because they justify themselves with these little quick one-liners. They'll say that, people are lazy and they need to work and this and that, but then they don't have enough employment opportunities, or accessibility to employment opportunities is scarce, or the the training to be capable of performing the jobs is unavailable, or it's unaffordable. I mixed the two words together, sorry. But you understand, where they play these games where they're supposed to be running and caring for the country. And they play these games of guilt, shame, and blame while stripping away resources, while making massive tax cuts for the wealthy. Like I said in previous videos, there are billionaires, people sitting with mountains of money, while other people are starving in the street. What is the point of having billions of dollars? Really? What is it going to serve? And they put their pictures and their bios up on the internet like it's something that we're supposed to look up for, because it's something that we should all be attaining. I'm sorry, but there is like a limited amount of money that flows through the world at any given point in time. And if that money has been gathered and collected by like maybe 10 people, and it's being stockpiled outside of circulation, that money is not serving anyone. That money is not doing anything for anyone. You understand? If they would take that money and put it into circulation, maybe more jobs could be created. Maybe we could invest in farming again. Maybe we can invest in agriculture, in the rainforest, and recovering the rainforest, because they burn it down all the time for profit. It's like, there is not one person, not one person who can handle the care of the whole world, right? But together we can, you know. And when you get rid of the people who sound like they're doing a good job, who sound like they have the people's best interests at heart, but their policies tank the country. When we get rid of these people, when these people are exposed, then, we can work towards being a better country. What President Trump is doing with this whole exposure thing, I would say that, it's not very professional, but sometimes desperate times call for desperate measures. And sometimes the game that they play requires you to play dirty, because they tie your hands, they cover themselves, they make you look horrible. And though President Trump really does look horrible right now, it's kind of understandable from my vantage point, that this is just what they do to people. And his response in all of it is also understandable from my vantage point, because I don't have the skills to deal with these people either, you know? But we need to stop looking at them like they're our problem to solve, because that's where we begin to feel helpless and hopeless and just out of options, because they don't change. They will tie you to their bumper and play kick the can with you all day long while your friends and loved ones cheer them on. They're so good at what they do, and that is not a good thing, you know? So there's no point in fighting them, but instead what we ought to start doing is returning back to the days where we take care of one another, you know? Where we have this understanding that we cannot defer our responsibility onto the government. And though they tax us for their responsibility, we have to recognize that, if Jesus had to do it with the weight of the world on his shoulders, then we should understand that the expectation placed upon us should be no less than that, Yes, we all pay taxes. Yes, we all give to charity. Yes, we are nice to those that we know, But the thing is that every day our world sinks lower and lower and lower. And if we keep saying we are doing our part while our world is sinking lower and lower and lower, then we must admit that we are responsible for its decline, because we have deferred our responsibility onto an authority that is not capable of performing that function. We have to take the responsibility back to ourselves. And when we take the responsibility back towards ourselves, then we begin to see that this government thing isn't really necessary, And I'm not saying anarchy. I'm not saying topple the government, but I'm saying leave them as they are. God will handle them. And instead, pick up your responsibility where you dropped it, in understanding that, we all need help, Where you see people like justifying doing somebody wrong because of something somebody said, even if they're an authority figure, Remember that this is a tool of the enemy that has been used for the past century. More than the past century, It's like the Antichrist is reigning. And in order to bring it down, you need not pick up a sword. You understand? You just need to pick up your neighbor, dust them off, help them out, You just need to take care of one another. If you will take care of one another, take your responsibility back, then these people who are hiding behind this shield of good deeds that they don't really do, like a useless nation, these people will fall to the wayside. They'll fall out of their positions, and this is the way that you handle them, this has always been my mindset, this has always been the way that I am. I believe in helping people. If someone comes to me and asks for help, it doesn't matter if I don't like you. It doesn't matter if I don't know you. If you ask me for help and I'm able, I'll help you, If I see you need help, I'll come ask you, can I help you, Start adopting this this motivation that, you were created to be a help to somebody else, That's all I'm saying. I know I usually do Bible study, but God moved me with Kafka this morning, of all people, So I'm going to read some more, and, maybe I'll come back another day to speak more on what I found. I know I'm a little bit all over the place. I've had a rough morning, but I'm trying to focus on what God put before me, starve my nightmares and feed my dreams. So you kind of have to pardon my affect. I think this is good. I think that it translates into something that we can apply, something that we can take note of. If nothing else, it highlights the method of the enemy and how they get over on each and every one of us. Like, you just saying that I'm under arrest does not mean that I'm under arrest. You saying that I can't have guests does not mean that I will not, have a guest. They say you can't claim innocence if you don't know the law. But, in my Bible, it says something like you don't need anyone to go out and get the law for you because it's written in your heart. Like, you know right from wrong. You can do right? You can choose right for yourself. And where these people are trying to enforce wrong behavior, you can say no. Like, if I was that lady, I'd walk right in and give him breakfast. Why? Because it's my house and he's my border, and you have no right to infringe on my rights. And it's in bowing to these people who lift up the law like this that we find the whole society crippled, Yes, wardens lie. Police officers lie. And it's legal for them to lie to you. We need to recognize these things and stop participating in the oppression of our neighbors, of ourselves. We need to say enough is enough, and we need to put them out of our lives by just living rightly, like, we'll handle this. It's all good. Go write some tickets someplace else, And that's all I'm thinking on today. So I'm gonna say have a good day and God bless.